So I originally had John queued up for this week and had a set of videos, but after this weekend and looking back at the matchups, I didn't really think it was super educational. I played a mirror, a black white tokens player who didn't play well. For the record, the mirror was Adrian Sullivan with the mirror of the Phyrexian Obliterator deck. Um, Anyways, I played those two decks and just three Steam Vents decks and just crushed those decks. And it wasn't really a really great representative kind of games. It really felt like, oh yeah, this is the best John could possibly be. I'm keeping one landers and drawing the second land the whole time while keeping discard spell Goyf Decay against Storm. Great, you're obviously going to win those games. So I decided I wanted to try something else, and the fact that Infect put two people in the top 8 of the Open was kind of eye-catching to me. So I opted to go with the third place list played by Thomas Gensman. Was the person who played this list. And it's a little weird at some points. I was kind of off-put by some of the stuff. I'm used to more than 12 Infect creatures, things like that. But after playing a little bit with it, it actually feels pretty fluid. You get a lot of choices, which is pretty awesome. So, kind of going through it, the first thing I want to point out is usually there's just 6 protection spells in the deck. But this deck has main deck Spell Skites, it fits a Spell Pierce, it's got a Dismember, it's got the Dryad Arbor for Liliana. So it really just has a ton of protection for your creatures. So going down to 12, in straight blue-green, the card quality drops off pretty fast in terms of Infect creatures. So you're just playing the good ones and then keeping them alive. That said, I don't think I would mind splashing black in a deck like this for Plague Stinger. The only issue is I think that might be a little awkward on the mana, just in terms of taking damage, and being a 2-drop is a little bit of an issue. I don't know. This has been okay. Looking at the spells, you may notice there's no ground spell. That's the big one. You just want your spells to do exactly what they do as printed. Some Rancors, because again, you are lighter on creatures, you're more likely going to have to lean on a Glistener Elf to get there, so this card is better. 4 Become Immense, that card is off the charts good. It's the kind of thing where it's very easy to one-shot pump spell kill someone with it. They just take a chip shot before from a... It's really, here's the math. Noble Hierarch, Blighted Agent. 2 on the first swing, Become Immense, 8 on the second swing. Just 2-shot someone with a single spell, getting to leave up a bunch of mana. That said, I think this list might have some issues getting the graveyard full, but we'll see. It's probably pretty reasonably costed most of the time to delve this card. And then Wild Defiance, which is half a protection card, half a kill spell. Yeah, this card's just great if everyone's playing Lightning Bolts and stuff like that. In theory, you also have the cute Spellskite, Wild Defiance. You can have double Spellskite and then pay life and bounce the spells around between your creatures. It's probably more cute than it is good, but anyways, there's only 3 probes. Drawing multiples of this card is actually an issue because paying life is a problem. It's actually really interesting how this deck manages its life total as a resource to give it the time necessary to have an actually set up win. Something I've kind of noticed in the quick games I've played. So having too many probes is a problem, and you're actually tapping mana for probe a decent amount of the time. Or more than other decks, I feel like. Then Hierarch, obviously, Pendelhaven, obviously. As many fetches as you can fit in with this many forests and breeding pools. I think you need this many of each. No promises. It's possible you could cut one of those and play a 9th fetch. And then the sideboard, we've got some weird one-ofs. Piracy Charm does things. It kills stuff. I'm sure I'll find a place for it. I think it's probably just to kill Pyromancer and Delver against Delver, and also to break through Pyromancer tokens with the Island Walk. It's probably the key play for this card. Dispel's great. Spell Pierce is more general purpose than Dispel because it helps you... you can play a reactive-ish game against combo with this card that you can't really with Dispel. They're oh, Pyromancer Ascension. Spell Pierce, great. Twisted Image as your anti... specifically, it's the best against Collected Company. It kills Spellskite and mana creatures. Wall of Roots, Noah Wolves Birds. And lets you disrupt them and kind of play a game that is kind of problematic for them. Though it's worth noting this deck doesn't really have a good way to beat an Answer Melira heads up, so you kind of have to just Wild Defiance straight through it. Which is doable. You can just kill him with damage, but it's kind of unfortunate. There's only the one Dismember. You might want another. I kind of was like, what is this card doing in the deck at first? And then I actually thought about it, and it's a pretty reasonable way to stop other aggressive decks. It's a blocker that actually does something. Shockingly, the same thing it does against every other deck in every other deck that plays Wall of Roots. Like, oh, it blocks and it makes mana. Great. And this deck wants mana and it wants blocking sometimes. Third Spellskite, I don't think you want more than 3. It is kind of clunky. Third Wild Defiance for when you want that effect. Probably most against Burn. They can't really burn out your creatures if you have Wild Defiance in play. Relics might be able to go. I'm not huge on the Graveyard Hate. I'm going to board this in against any Grixis Snapcaster Mage decks and see how it plays there. And if I don't like it, I'm not going to likely have it in the deck moving forward. And then your standard anti-artifact and enchantment spells. I mean, not too much you can really ask for besides what they do. And the one Hurkyl's Recall is the Mize get you against Affinity. I mean, this is pretty stock. This is like a pretty similar split to what I played. What is it now? 3-ish years ago? Jeez. When I first played the deck, I had 4 Nature's Claim to start, and then I added a Hurkyl's, because just the extra power level when you draw that card in that matchup is great. And there's not a lot of matchups you really want 4 Nature's Claims against that aren't Affinity. So, I haven't played a lot, like I said, but I've been shockingly impressed with how this deck plays out. And hopefully there's some interesting decisions in terms of, what you're doing. It's not like the first time I played Infect where just like get you on turn 3 where people were just like, wait, what's going on? Like there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through, and it's a lot more like if you watch Tom Ross playing Legacy Infect. I think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of interplay.